The arrival. Captain Marcus Riker paced the bridge of the U.S. Prometheus, his mind heavy with the weight of the situation. The ruthless Zorak armada was closing in, and Earth's last line of defense rested in his hands. The Prometheus was a wolf in sheep's clothing, an aging frigate hiding advanced weaponry and cloaking technology. The Zorak had underestimated humanity, and now Riker would make them pay for their arrogance. Fleet composition, Captain. Lieutenant Chen reported, her voice tense. 200 heavy cruisers, 50 dreadnoughts. Their flagship, Reaper, is leading the charge. Riker studied the tactical display. The Zorak were merciless conquerors, having enslaved and slaughtered billions across the galaxy. Now they were coming for the human colonies, and the Prometheus was all that stood in their way. But Riker had no intention of letting them pass. "We can't fight the whole fleet," Lieutenant And said, worry etched on his face. "It's suicide." "We have no choice," Riker replied, his voice steady. "Warm up the EMP cannon and ready the cloaking device. We're going to strike at their heart. Take out the Reaper and throw them into chaos." The crew knew the odds, but they also knew what was at stake. 20 million civilians depended on them, and retreat was not an option. As the Zorak fleet approached, Riker gave the order to decloak and fire. The Prometheus emerged from the void, its weapons blazing, as it taught the Zorak the true meaning of fear, the sacrifice. The Prometheus danced through the Zorak formation, its rail guns ripping through enemy ships with deadly precision. But for every Zorak vessel destroyed, a dozen more filled the void. The Prometheus was outnumbered and outgunned, but Riker's crew fought with grim determination, refusing to yield. When the Prometheus took a direct hit, the hull shuddered and alarms blared. Lieutenant Chen's voice broke through the chaos. "Shields are failing, Captain. We can't keep this up." Riker knew they were running out of time. "Cloak the ship and prepare for another pass," he ordered. But even as the Prometheus vanished into the void, Riker realized that it wasn't enough. The Zorak were too many, too relentless. If they didn't do something drastic, Earth would fall. Riker made a decision. "All hands, abandon ship," he ordered, his voice rough with emotion. "Get to the escape pods. The Prometheus is lost, but you can still survive." The crew hesitated, their loyalty evident, but one by one, they followed orders, leaving Riker and a handful of volunteers to carry out the final mission. Riker set a collision course for the Reaper and diverted all remaining power to the engines. The Prometheus would make its last stand, a blazing comet of destruction aimed straight at the heart of the enemy fleet. The aftermath. The Prometheus slammed into the Reaper, and in an instant, both ships were vaporized in a blinding fireball. The explosion tore through the Zorak fleet, leaving a wake of shattered ships and stunned survivors. Riker's sacrifice had bought precious time for humanity, but the war was far from over. In the days that followed, the story of the Prometheus spread across Earth, inspiring a global mobilization. Factories retooled to produce warships and weapons, while volunteers flooded recruiting stations, eager to join the fight. Admiral Riker, promoted posthumously, became a symbol of humanity's defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. But the Zorak were not finished. Their fleet, though battered, was still vast, and they would return with a vengeance. As Earth's forces prepared for the coming storm, scientists worked tirelessly to unlock the secrets of the Prometheus's advanced technology. They knew that victory would require more than just courage. It would take ingenuity and the willingness to do the impossible. The calm before the storm. Admiral Riker's successor, Admiral Kellis, stood on the bridge of the EDF Titan, the new flagship of Earth's defense fleet. The Zorak scouts had already entered the solar system, probing Earth's defenses. The tension was palpable as the fleet prepared for the inevitable invasion. "All ships prepare for battle," Kellis ordered. The Titan was flanked by the next generation of Prometheus-class dreadnoughts, sleek and deadly, bristling with the latest human technology. The fleet was ready, But Kellis knew that this battle would test them like never before. Down on Earth, the final preparations were underway. Soldiers drilled, weapons were stockpiled, and civilians braced for the worst. The Zorak were coming, and when they arrived, it would be a fight for the survival of the human race. The battle for Earth. The Zorak invasion fleet arrived with terrifying speed, and all hell broke loose. Earth's defense forces met them head-on, the stealth Dreadnought striking with deadly precision. Rail guns, laser cannons, and fusion torpedoes turned the skies into a hellscape of fire and debris. The Galileo defense platform, the most powerful weapon humanity had ever constructed, unleashed its fury, vaporizing Zorak ships with each shot. But for every Zorak ship destroyed, more surged forward. The battle reached a fever pitch, and Earth's defenses began to falter. The Titan fought valiantly, but even it was pushed to the brink. Admiral Kellis knew they were losing. Unless they did something drastic, Earth would fall. Kellis ordered a desperate plan. A stealth shuttle, equipped with a powerful Sage warhead, would be sent on a suicide mission to the Zorak flagship. It was a long shot, but it was their only hope. The final gambit. The stealth shuttle, piloted by a volunteer crew, slipped through the chaos and approached the Zorak flagship. On board, the crew prepared for the end. They knew the odds, but they also knew what was at stake. Humanity's survival depended on their success. The shuttle closed in, undetected by the Zorak. At the last moment, the crew activated the warhead and transmitted a final message to Earth, for humanity. The shuttle exploded, taking the Zorak flagship with it. The blast sent shockwaves through the Zorak fleet, throwing them into disarray. Admiral Kellis seized the moment, ordering a full-scale counterattack. The Titan led the charge, its weapons blazing as it tore through the enemy ranks. The dawn of a new era. The destruction of the Zorak flagship turned the tide of the battle. Disoriented and leaderless, the Zorak fleet began to retreat. Earth's forces pursued them, driving the invaders from the solar system. Humanity had won, but at a great cost. As the dust settled, the people of Earth mourned their losses, but also celebrated their victory. The war was over, but the lessons learned would shape the future of humanity. Admiral Kellis, now a hero in her own right, vowed to ensure that Earth would be ready for whatever came next. The Prometheus and its crew were gone, but their legacy lived on. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would not be defeated, that even in the face of impossible odds, they would fight with everything they had. And in the end, they had prevailed. The stars were no longer just a place for dreams. They were a place for humanity to conquer, to explore, and to defend. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity would face it together, stronger and more united than ever before. Deep within the bowels of the Prometheus, hidden systems hummed to life as the Thanatos Protocol was initiated. This was the final, most devastating weapon humanity had ever devised. A system capable of annihilating entire fleets, but at an unthinkable cost. Captain Marcus Riker knew what he was about to do, but there was no other option. Earth's survival depended on it. All hands, brace yourselves, Riker ordered, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. We're about to take them with us. The bridge crew exchanged grim looks. They had fought together for years, and now, at the end of all things, they would fall together. The ship's hull groaned under the relentless barrage from the Zorak fleet, but still, the Prometheus held on. Riker turned to the comms officer. Patch me through to Kavos. A crackle of static preceded the connection. Then the sneering face of Warlord Kavos filled the screen. His eyes burned with hatred as he recognized the human captain. Captain Riker, Kavos spat. It seems you are more tenacious than I anticipated. But no matter. Your pathetic ship will fall, and with it, your world. Riker stared back at the alien warlord, unflinching. Kavos, you've underestimated us from the start. Humanity isn't just about strength. We're about sacrifice. You've seen what one ship can do to your fleet. Imagine what an entire species can accomplish. Kavos's eyes narrowed, sensing the change in Riker's tone. What are you planning, human? A cold smile crept across Riker's face. You wanted Earth. You wanted to crush humanity. Then come and get it. But you won't live to see it. With that, Riker cut the transmission and nodded to the tactical officer. Activate the Thanatos protocol. The Prometheus shuddered as the system engaged. The ship's reactors overloaded, building to critical mass. Every remaining weapon was redirected to focus on a single point, the heart of the Zorak fleet, where Kavos's flagship lay. The bridge lights dimmed as power was drained from non-essential systems, funneling into the ultimate weapon. Target locked, sir, the tactical officer reported, sweat beading on his forehead. Fire, Riker commanded. The Prometheus unleashed its final fury. A blinding beam of energy erupted from the ship, slicing through the void like a scythe. The beam pierced the Zorak flagship, striking its reactor core. For a moment, time seemed to freeze as both ships remained locked in the deadly embrace. Then, with a cataclysmic roar, the flagship exploded, the blast wave consuming everything in its path. The shockwave tore through the Zorak fleet, ships disintegrating under the sheer force of the explosion. The Prometheus, at the epicenter, was vaporized instantly, along with the brave crew that had given everything to save their world. On Earth, people watched in stunned silence as the skies lit up with the fiery demise of the Zorak fleet. The battle was over. The invaders had been stopped, but the cost was unimaginable. Admiral Riker and his crew had made the ultimate sacrifice, and now all that remained was to pick up the pieces and rebuild. As the dust settled and the remaining Zorak forces scattered, the people of Earth realized that, against all odds, they had survived. The war was far from over, but thanks to the courage and determination of a few, humanity had earned the chance to fight another day. The galaxy would remember the name Prometheus, not as a ship, but as a symbol of humanity's indomitable will. And as long as that spirit endured, Earth would remain free. The explosion of the Prometheus sent shockwaves through the entire sector, a dazzling burst of light visible from both Earth and the distant observation posts in space. For a brief moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath as the power of humanity's defiance was unleashed. In the silence that followed, the remaining Zorak ships faltered. The destruction of their flagship and the sudden loss of their warlord plunged the alien fleet into chaos. Without Kavos's leadership, the once coordinated assault turned into disarray. Ships collided, misfired, and fell out of formation. Panic spread among the ranks of the Zorak soldiers as they realized the tide had turned. On Earth, the skies began to clear. The massive Zorak warships that had once loomed ominously overhead were now burning wreckage, tumbling through the atmosphere. The world watched as the invincible armada crumbled, broken by the last stand of the Prometheus. Cheers erupted in cities across the globe, a collective cry of relief and triumph. But amid the celebration, there was also mourning. The sacrifice of Captain Marcus Riker and his crew weighed heavily on the minds of those who understood the true cost of victory. They had saved Earth, but their names would be remembered with both reverence and sorrow. Across the globe, people lit candles in their memory, holding vigils to honor the fallen heroes. In orbit, the remaining human fleet regrouped, rallying behind Admiral Shauna Lee, who had taken command after Riker's final transmission. She knew that humanity's fight was far from over. The Zorak were a formidable enemy, and this victory, though significant, would not be the last battle. But for now, Earth had been spared, and that was a victory worth savoring. Admiral, a young officer called out, "We're detecting retreat vectors from the Zorak ships. They're pulling back." Lee nodded, her eyes steely. "Good. Let them run. We'll deal with them later. For now, let's secure the area and start recovery operations. We need to assess the damage and see what's left of our forces." As the remnants of the human fleet began the grim task of searching through the wreckage, the full extent of the battle became clear. Hundreds of ships were lost, and countless lives had been sacrificed. But Earth stood defiant, a beacon of hope in a galaxy fraught with danger. On the surface, leaders from every nation convened to discuss the future. The battle had shown the world that humanity was stronger united than divided. Old rivalries were set aside, replaced by a shared purpose, to ensure that such a threat could never again endanger their world. The United Earth Defense Council was formed, an alliance dedicated to protecting humanity from future extraterrestrial threats. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, analyzing the wreckage of the Zorak ships, reverse engineering their technology, and bolstering Earth's defenses. What had once been a fractured planet was now a unified force, driven by the shared memory of the Prometheus and its crew. In the aftermath of the battle, messages of solidarity poured in from across the galaxy. Other species, once wary of humanity, now saw them as equals, survivors who had faced the darkness and refused to be extinguished. Ambassadors from distant worlds reached out, seeking alliances and cooperation. The galaxy had taken notice of humanity's resilience, and a new era of diplomacy began. But deep in space, far from the celebrations on Earth, the surviving Zorak forces regrouped. Their fleet was shattered, their leaders slain, but their hatred for humanity burned brighter than ever. From the shadows, a new leader emerged, one who would stop at nothing to avenge Kavos and complete the mission he had started. And so, as humanity rebuilt and looked to the stars with newfound hope, the Zorak plotted their revenge. The war was far from over, but one thing was certain: humanity would be ready. For as long as the spirit of the Prometheus endured, the galaxy would know that Earth was not to be trifled with. The story of Captain Riker and his crew would be passed down through generations, a reminder that, in the darkest of times, humanity's greatest strength was its willingness to stand, fight, and, if necessary, sacrifice everything for the sake of its future. The battle for Earth had ended, but the fight for the galaxy had just begun.